Welcome to Friendly Math 101. Today our lesson is on solving quadratic equations by factoring. If you're being asked to solve a quadratic equation, what you're being asked to find are the roots, or zeros, or x-intercepts, or solutions. They're all the same. And one method for finding those solutions is by factoring. Let's take a look at our first example. Here we have 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 equals 0. Since we're using factoring, we first want to factor out our greatest common factor. In this case, our greatest common factor is 1, so we're going to go straight to the box. We'll put the first term in the first box, last term in the last box, multiply those, we'll get negative 6x squared. And let's go ahead and list the factors. We have 1x and 6x, 2x and 3x. We're trying to find the combination that will add up to negative 5x, but also multiply to negative 6x squared. It has to be 1x and negative 6x. Some people might argue that negative 2x and negative 3x would also work, but that doesn't multiply to give you negative 6x squared. It would be positive, so that wouldn't work. Let's go ahead and fill in our factors, and we're going to factor out our greatest common factor in each direction. So here our greatest common factor is 1x. This way would be negative 3. Our GCF this way will be 2x, and along the bottom, 1. To solve by factoring, we have to set our factors equal to 0, and then we solve our two-step equations using inverse operations. So let's go ahead and set up our factor, set it equal to 0. We're going to add 3 to both sides to undo the subtraction. And then we get 1x equals 3. And divide both sides by 1 to undo the multiplication, and we get x equals 3. Let's go ahead and set our second factor equal to 0, 2x plus 1 equals 0. And again, using inverse operations to undo the addition, we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. We have 2x equals negative 1, and then to undo the multiplication, we'll divide by 2. So we get x equals negative 1/2. What this means is that if we were to graph this parabola, our parabola would cross the x-axis once at 3 and once at negative 1/2. Those are our two solutions. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have an equation that's not written in standard form, so that should be our first step, is to get this into standard form. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and we get 40x squared plus 6x minus 4 equals 0. We can't combine any of those because they're not like terms. Factor out our greatest common factor, which is 2. And factoring out means dividing out. So we're going to divide each term by 2. And we're actually going to factor the trinomial in the parentheses now with the box, not the original problem. So our first term will be 20x squared. Our last term is negative 2. Multiply those two together, we get negative 40x squared. And the factors of 40 are 1x and 40x, 2x, 20x, 4x and 10x, and lastly 5x and 8x. We're trying to find the combination of factors that add up to positive 3, but also multiply to give us negative 40x squared. So in this case, it would have to be 5x and 8x, and since we want the 3 to be positive, we need the 5 to be negative, not the 8. So negative 5x and positive 8x. We're going to factor out the GCF in each direction. This way our GCF is 5x. This way it would be 2. Our GCF in this direction is 4x, and along the bottom our GCF is negative 1. Set each factor equal to 0, 5x plus 2 equals 0, and we're going to use inverse operations. Subtract 2 from both sides, we get 5x equals negative 2, and then to undo the multiplication, we'll divide each side by 5. So we get x equals negative 2/5. Our second factor is 4x minus 1. Set that equal to 0. add 1 to both sides to undo the subtraction, and then we'll divide both sides by 4 to get our second solution, which is x equals 1/4. Okay, so in this case we did have a GCF at the beginning of the problem, and that GCF actually has nothing to do with your solution. So don't worry about it if you're just using factoring to solve. We don't need to worry about our GCF as a part of our answer. This concludes our lesson on solving quadratic equations by factoring. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section below. And for more math tutorials, please subscribe to our channel, Friendly Math 101.